So, like, ever wondered how humanity endures in the darkest times? So, Anthony Doerr's Pulitzer's Prize-winning the masterpiece, All the Light We Cannot See. So, this is the book that we'll be discussing today. Answers that with a breathtaking grace. So, we'll be diving deep into this World War II epic that intertwines a blind French girl and a German orphan turned soldier. So one of the reasons why I love this book is Anthony Doerr just doesn't write a war story. He crafts a symphony of invisible connections, radio signals, whispers of courage, and the light we feel but never quite see. And like Marie-Laure navigating Paris with her father's miniature models. So the structure is I'm gonna be sharing my thoughts and concluded with like 3 of my favorite quotes. Like there's so many great lines in the book, but I'll hopefully like pick my 3 favorite ones and I'll share that with you. So if you are curious, please make sure to stick to the end. Just to give you a brief synopsis of the book, Marie-Laure is blind since she's 6. She is raised in Paris by her locksmith father, who teaches her to see through intricate scale models. Like her father intricately meticulously built a whole model of the town or the city they're living in, so that his daughter will be able to scale through the city since he's blind. And then when the Nazis occupy Paris, they flee to Saint-Malo carrying a legendary diamond. So this is where the whole plot revolves. The Sea of Flames. So rumored to curse its keeper but protect the city, right? So there are many characters that will eventually intertwine. And then the other dynamic, right? So now we have the story of Marie-Laure and then the other character. There are 2 main characters in the book. So we have another that is Fennec Werner, a German orphan with a genius for fixing radios. So his talent lands him in a brutal Nazi academy. So he was supposed to work somewhere in a coal mine, but then since he sort of had a genius, since he sort of developed a temperament, they discovered this boy was some sort of genius in all this radio stuff. He got recruited into this Nazi school. But then even in that rigorous, highly scheduled Nazi academy, he held on to his childhood obsession, mostly a science broadcast by a French professor. He doesn't know this, but now and then with his sister Jutta, they would listen to a radio broadcast about scientific stuff. This scientist on the radio happened to be Marie-Laure's grandfather, right? That is also one point. Then through this radio, somehow it will eventually lead into these 2 characters intertwining and meeting. So when the Werner units, the Nazis unit, when they storm into Saint-Malo, he hears a faint radio plea. So and this radio plea was no one but Marie-Laure, broadcasting from her attic, reading 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. That crimson imagery, it's Doerr screaming, humanity survives, in small, defiant act of hope. So whenever there's thing going on, it doesn't have to be like very epic of a revolution. Like every one of us can sort of spark a revolution, keep the flame alive in our own small way. Yeah, I won't go into much spoiler about how they met, how Werner ended up saving Marie-Laure, because if I were to disclose that in this video, I think it would rob you of one of the most climactic moment of the book. So the title itself is both literal and metaphorical. That's a genius of Anthony Doerr. I think the way he named the novel is so poignant and just excellent. Like I couldn't think of any name better. All the Light We Cannot See. Marie-Laure's courage, Werner's empathy, even the cursed diamond that is a sea of flame. The real magic, I'd say, is how Doerr makes horror beautiful. Saint-Malo bombing is described like constellation of collapsing. I could go on forever and ever, but I think one thing that you should expect while reading this book in particular is you shouldn't expect a fairy tale. This is not all happy-go-lucky kind of book. I think it is quite realistic and it is quite grounded. It is sad, but I think that is also one of the things that made it really memorable. The big question remains, why is it that this book got us? Why is it that it got me so much? Why is it that it means so much to me? And I think that part, it should come to the way Anthony Doerr forced us to stare into war's abyss and still find a flicker of light, a tiny stitch in humanity's empathy. And Werner's brief union with Marie-Laure reminds us that being kind isn't being naive, it is rebellious. Sometimes being kind can be more akin to being rebellious instead of being just naive. I don't know if it makes any sense, but something like that. Why would you read this book? Yeah? Why should you read this book? I'd say you should go for this book to read for the prose. I think there are certain quotes that I think it is pretty much etched in my head. And the characters, I think in their small way, it carves hope in times of despair. And I think this book, I would wholly recommend this book. Okay, now coming to the end of the book talk. I have 3 quotes in particular that I genuinely like. So the first one is, the brain is locked in total darkness. Of course, children, says the voice. It floats in a clear liquid inside the skull, never in the light. And yet the world it constructs in the mind is full of light. It brims with color and movement. So how, children, does the brain, which lives without a spark of light, build for us a world full of light? And the other quote, another one. What do we call visible light? We call it color, but the electromagnetic spectrum runs to 0 in one direction and infinity in the other. So really, children, mathematically, all of light is invisible. Then I think you can also use that quote in many things, but metaphorically, like it also shows you how the human knowledge is pretty much nil. Like there are so many things that we still don't know, and compared to what we don't know, what we know is pretty much nothing, something like that. And the last, open your eyes and see what you can with them before they close forever. Thank you.